Welcome to BizStream. I'm Shala Vogue. Here's today's lineup. Japan is home to some of the oldest companies in the world. On-Site Report looks at how a nearly 300-year-old sake brewing company has overcome the turbulent tides of change. Today we have Eda Makiko, Chief Sustainability, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Sumitomo Corporation. Great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's move on to On-Site Report.
Japan is home to some of the oldest businesses in the world, and today On-Site Report will highlight one of them. In a never-ending pursuit to produce the highest quality sake, this nearly 300-year-old sake brewery has combined orthodox production methods with modern technology.
We realized there was a fundamental flaw with standard rice polishing methods.
Join us as we discover how a careful balancing act between tradition and innovation is allowing this family-owned brewery to remain competitive.
Today we're featuring Japanese companies that have been around for hundreds of years. And Roger, Japan has a lot of companies that are over 100 years old. So could you tell us more?
Yes, Nikkei BP Consulting says as of 2022, there were just over 37,000 Japanese companies that have been in business for 100 years or more. And as you can see here, those firms make up half the total number of companies across the globe that are over 100 years old. And if that's not impressive enough, Japan also has the most businesses that are 200 years old or older at 65%.
Wow. I mean, those numbers are quite shocking. What do you make of that, Makiko? I mean, 100 years old and over 200 years old, 65.2%.
Oh my, I didn't know that. You know, I think a lot of these companies are involved in producing goods and services related to traditional Japanese culture and crafts, maybe kimono makers or sake brewers. I think many Japanese people are good at pursuing continuing one specific interest with passion and dedication. And this may be influenced by the value many people here place on tradition and stability.
Definitely. Well, let's find out how a historic brewery has managed to survive the various challenges it faced over the last few centuries.
Fukushima Prefecture is known for its sake. Founded in 1752, this brewery has been producing sake here for nearly 3 centuries. It's known for its continued use of traditional brewing methods. Ota Hideharu's family has been running the company for 10 generations.
I think we might be the only brewery in Japan that has remained squarely focused on using the traditional kimoto method since our founding.
Kimoto zukuri is a labor-intensive step in the brewing process that cultivates robust yeast. Brewery workers use wooden poles to grind and mix steamed rice, koji, water, and yeast by hand. The painstaking process must be done in a cold room and can take several hours to complete.
This has to be done manually because if it's not done just right, you won't achieve the desired growth of lactic acid bacteria.
The lactic acid bacteria that are present in the brewery's air then begin to flourish. Over time, the lactic acid they produce kills off other microbes, leaving only a highly pure and resilient yeast, which is perfect for producing richly flavored sake. While this method used to be practiced by all sake breweries, about 100 years ago, a major shift occurred in the industry. Researchers discovered that introducing pure lactic acid directly into the starter mash allowed for achieving a similar result without requiring the time and labor-intensive grinding method. This led the majority of sake breweries to switch to this faster and easier way of producing sake. Ota's grandfather also followed the trend and tried brewing sake using this new method. However, he felt the new process couldn't produce the unique flavors that gave his brewery's sake its own identity. So he made the bold decision to go back to using only the kimoto method.
While seemingly contradictory, My grandfather often said that we should try to create a sake that is both refined and powerful. He was adamant that our brewery always strive to attain that unique combination.
His grandfather's commitment to flavors soon paid off. In 1938, a sake they produced using the traditional Kimoto method was awarded first prize in a national sake competition. Rather than following modern trends, it was the brewery's dedication to pursuing quality that helped it become widely recognized for producing excellent sake. The classic rich flavors achieved through this orthodox method have gained the brewery new fans as well. This restaurant, located in Tokyo's Ginza district, not only recommends pairing Ota's sake with Japanese cuisine, but also with Western-style meat dishes.
Now that's tasty. The sake's flavors somehow come out even more when combined with a meal like this.
Japanese food, meats, it goes with almost anything. It's got a lot of depth to it, which makes it extremely versatile.
Sometimes tradition can become a burden, but the fact that we're still going strong today is proof that it can also be valuable. In our case, staying close to our roots and embracing what many others moved away from has helped a small family-owned brewery like us to stay competitive.
So this right here is one of the sakes Ota's brewery makes using the traditional Kimoto method that we just saw. And I have to say, when I heard that we were doing a story on sake, I was so excited because sake is by far one of my favorite drinks. And we actually had the opportunity to try some of this before the show, and I can tell you, it went down real smooth. It was delicious. And Makio, I think you got a chance to try some of it as well.
It was very, very nice.
So good.
Aroma is so rich, and it smelled like, you know, the smell of fermentation, maybe smelled like cheese a little bit. But when I tasted it, and it was very light in flavor, and aftertaste was very rich. So
I know.
It was very nice.
It was so delicious. I do hope that I get to take this home after the show today. But you may have noticed there was a song that they were singing in the brewery, and a little bit of information. That was a special sake making song. And back when they didn't have a way to keep track of time, they would use these songs to keep in rhythm and get the right amount of mixing or to get other work done. And it also helped to keep up morale because it was labor intensive work, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and adding to that, Shell, apparently the songs are often specific to certain regions or introduced by the head brewer when joining a brewery. But in the late 1950s, during Japan's rapid economic growth, more and more of the sake making processes we saw became mechanized, and the songs have gradually fallen out of use. The employees at Ota's brewery no longer sing them during the normal production process, but to make sure the historic songs are preserved, they formed a company choir that performs at special events.
Wow, a company choir. I love that. I love that they're trying to preserve that because it's such an interesting part of their history. But staying in business for 20, 30 years is impressive. Here we have a company that's almost 300 years. And if you think about that, this brewery was brewing sake before the U.S. was a country.
Wow. Keeping a business going for a long time is not an easy. Being able to last this long means these companies have a strong, well-established value proposition, but also have a good leadership that have allowed them to adapt to the change of times. That said, no company is completely immune to what's going on in the world. A good portion of these super old companies are family-run, small and medium-sized businesses. So things like ongoing labor shortage and inflation are certainly making things tough on them as well. But hopefully their wealth of management experience and the long-lasting philosophy will continue to keep them on the right path.
Definitely. Well, while Ota-san's brewery has made a commitment to preserving its traditional flavors, that doesn't mean it has been completely resistant to change.
In the early 1990s, Ota Hideharu began looking for ways to further improve the brewery's offerings.
As time goes by, people have more options and become more discerning and demanding. I felt we had to somehow take things up a notch.
With that thought in mind, he wondered if there was anything else he could do to further refine and improve the flavors of his sakes. Soon after, he came across an article in a trade journal discussing potential new methods for polishing rice. Since the outer layers of brown rice contain oils and proteins that can negatively affect flavor when making sake, a polishing machine is used to remove them. Standard methods polish evenly along both the length and the breadth of a grain of rice, which results in a smaller, rounded grain with portions of the unwanted outer layer still remaining. The article Ota read stated that by changing to a flat rather than round polishing method, the machine could more closely follow the natural shape of the grain.
I realized that our rice polishing method was preventing us from reaching our full potential. I became set on giving flat polishing a try.
However, flat polishing also presented some new problems to consider. Since the rice grains come out longer and thinner, they would be more susceptible to breakage. Also at the time, a machine that could efficiently flat polish a usable amount of rice didn't exist. But Ota persevered, and after more than a year of trial and error, he and his team were able to modify a standard polishing machine and achieve flat polishing capabilities at an industrial level.
I learned that you can't always get what you want right away. It takes time and dedication to reach a desired goal. But to be honest, there were a few times where I was ready to give up.
The sake the company produces with flat polished rice has become popular both domestically and abroad. The head sommelier at one of Paris's finest hotels has been serving several of the brewery's sakes since 2017.
One of the advantages of being a historic company is that you can set an ambitious goal and remain committed to pursuing it over a very long span of time. If you look at our brewery, the vision began with my grandfather and spanned across 3 generations. He made sure we didn't compromise and that we stuck with tradition. I want to make sure that I pass that philosophy on to my children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren, so they can lead the company in the same way.
Wow, a product from a small brewery in the countryside, you know, in one of the finest restaurants in Paris. That's impressive.
It's very exciting. I see a lot of travelers to Japan are buying up quite a bit of sake here. So it must be very popular overseas. I know the Japanese External Trade Organization have been working to promote sake as an alternative for white wine when pairing with seafood dishes. While France is home to many world-famous wineries, sake breweries are also steadily gaining recognition. Their history, brewing techniques are on par with some of the world's most renowned spirit makers. Japanese whiskey, wine, and other liquors also started to gain recognition from the rest of the world.
Definitely. I can say for certain that my friends are definitely buying up a lot of sake when they're visiting. So, Raja, exactly how much of their sake is selling abroad?
Actually, not as much as you would expect. Only about 10% of its total sales currently come from exports. And Ota says one reason behind that is his top priority is having the brand recognized for its quality. So rather than focusing on the quantity, he's more concerned with who's buying his sake. Now, we saw Ota's sake being served at prestigious hotels in Paris, right? They've also made it to tables at some very special events, such as a G8 summit that was held here in Japan and a banquet that was held by the Dutch royal family.
Wow, that is fancy and very impressive. So, Makiko, going back to these historic companies, I mean, what is it that you think we can learn from historical companies like the one that we saw?
You know, I think the countries we saw earlier on the most historic companies in the world have one thing in common. They are known for their craftsmanship. Whether it's a silk kimono, a wooden chest, or a pair of leather shoes, people put values in products and have a long-standing reputation for quality. A company history in its story is part of what we find appealing about the brand and its products. The ability to work towards the same goal across multiple generations is a major strength. A company's heritage is very much like DNA, and we're not just appreciating the product itself, but the fruits of generations of hard work, tradition, and innovation all combine into what their current offerings provide.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the cultural value that these companies have too, it's just, you know, you can't compare it to anything.
I love them.
Well, I think we can all agree we're going to have some sake tonight. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this week. I'm Shala Vogue, and this was History. We'll see you next time.